I had a purpose before everybody had an opinion.
The 0-2 pitch, swing and a miss, struck him out.
You want Philly Philly?
Chase Utley, you are the man.
You come out backyard and you try to start something, you always get your butt kicked.
The prayers have been answered.
How about those Eagles, baby?
And Rio Muto can run for days.
Can you feel what's about to happen on this field, man?
A perfect game. Roy Halladay has thrown the second perfect game in Philadelphia Phillies history.
All right, we are back here today with another Philly Talk episode, and there is a ton to discuss since the last episode we did. Obviously, last Philly Talk came out on the 25th of June. We are here on the 3rd, so still only a week, but what an eventful week it was for us Philadelphia Phillies fans, as the game we're mainly going to be looking at, June 27th. Why that day, you ask? Well, playing against the Marlins. First off, we won the series in Detroit. Was happy to see that. But in that last game against Detroit, it was Spencer Turnbull's start. He left the game early with they called it like something about like somewhere like his back and like shoulder space, like in that area. He left with like some inflammation or whatever. He left the game early. Turned into more of like a bullpen game. But we're looking at this game, specifically the Miami series. It's the start of it. Hoping, to make quick work of the Marlins, And it quickly turns into disaster. The Phils were up 3-0. And then Wheeler led up 2 earned runs. And then Strahm led up 2 earned runs to let the lead go by. And then from there, the Phils were really trying to work themselves back, in the lead, of course. And that's where just disaster struck all throughout the rest of that game. Kyle Schwarber wasn't left to start this game. And at the end, he ends up pulling something. And then, trying to keep the game alive, Harper, I forget where it was, he's running to first. And he feels like he pulled something. And after the game, Harper saying like he felt like it was something like he had never felt before. And after the game, we learned that the two of them got injured. Those are your two biggest hitters on this team, so you're already worried enough as it is. But then you get the news. They're both going on, I believe it was the 10-day IL. And ensue complete panic from the entire Philadelphia Phillies fan base. A lot of it I felt was like overreactionary, because it was just like they were just going crazy talking about. I saw people saying, "Oh, that's the end of the season. Oh, this season isn't gonna go the way we expected anymore." And it's just like, why? What are you guys on about? Like, I get it. It's Bryce Harper, it's Kyle Schwarber, our two best hitters. Especially when it comes to long ball, and with Harper having the season that he was having. But to act like it's over with, people have been saying it. We could play 500 ball from here on out and still end up above 500, and I think potentially make the playoffs. I forget exactly what are things, but I know for sure people have been saying we could play 500 ball from the rest of the point here and still finish over 500. But I think someone even said 20 games over 500. But of course the main focus is just these are your two best players essentially. How are we gonna do without them? And so we saw a lot of moves happen. We saw Cody Clemens get reactivated from his rehab sessions down in AAA. We saw Johan Rojas get called back up. Trying to remember who else. Michael Mercado got called up because of Taijuan Walker going on the 15-day IL because of that blister in his hand, which a lot of people were going on the IL for a blister, but that to me also more reads as the Phillies not really wanting to use him in the rotation, and that's their excuse to just be like, look, man, this blister seems like a real big problem to us. You should take as much time as you need to heal from that, you know. That's just my feeling. But so they called up Michael Mercado, who just had his first start yesterday against the Cubs. He had a relief outing for us, obviously, but this was his first start. He looked pretty good. What did he get? Like 5.2 innings, was it? Or was it? I need to double check because this thing's still counting. Obviously, his relief outing. So I think he only went 5 if I remember correctly. He went 5, only let up, I think it was 1 earned run. Let me double check this real quick. But you know, he looked pretty good out there. 5 innings, 1 earned run, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts. Pretty good stuff. 78 pitches. Gregory Soto, we've been talking about him a lot. You know. Pretty good since I forget what day it was in June, but you look at his last 5 outings, coming against Arizona, Detroit, Miami, and Chicago. No earned runs, no hits, no walks, and just pure strikeouts from him basically. That's pretty insane compared to everything we've gotten from him in the past, you know. So good to see him getting into that rhythm. But yeah, those were some of the moves, you know, like having to call up a bunch of different guys to really come in and help us. Let's not talk about yesterday's heart attack too, where freaking who came in? Was it Jose Ruiz? Yeah, Jose Ruiz came in and let up 3 earned runs, and Hoffman had to come in to close it out for the save, which shout out Hoffman. But we had to make a lot of moves to really, you know, bolster this roster after Harper and Schwarber went down. And so they moved the lineup, especially around 2, to try and accommodate this. So what we've been seeing as of late is Bryson Stott leading off, Bohm taking Harper's place, Marsh being moved up to the 4 spot, and then just sort of rotating different guys out between Cody Clemens, Edmundo Sosa, Whit Merrifield, David Dahl, Johan Rojas, Pache, and that's sort of been just what's happening. Is just trying to find anyone to like just fill in this roster for so far. I'm glad Cody's back, just because you know, for me at least, I've kind of mentioned it in the past before. I don't really like when they play Bohm at first. His defense significantly seems to drop off a lot, especially when he's at first. So I'm glad to have Cody there. Yesterday's game, he had a double and was one of the runs scored. Against Miami again, he had a double. So I'm glad to have Cody, you know, back on the roster. David Dahl has been, you know, moving in and out with all different types of guys. Sometimes he's in left, sometimes he's in right, sometimes he's DHing like yesterday. But, you know, that's basically what we've been seeing the past like week since Harper and Schwarber went down, is just trying to find as many different guys to fill in. Johan Rojas, since coming back, he had a double in one of the Miami games. He was one of the runs scored, had a walk, and then yesterday he had a hit, and that was pretty much it. But, you know, we've been just trying to find really anyone, you know, like anyone to just please like fill in for those 2 guys while they're gone. And of course, you're not going to fill in for the production. But what I've liked from a lot of the different games that they've played since, you know, Harper went down. Now, obviously, they lost another close game to Miami. You didn't want to see that. But some of the things that my dad and I have liked is that, you know, they're still going for the long ball. I mean, Trey yesterday had 2 home runs, one of which went out of the park. That was insane. But for the most part, they've been kind of getting better at, you know, it's almost like they've looked and said, with our 2 biggest home run hitters out, let's focus on putting the ball in play, you know, and you know, kind of what you've heard me like reiterate since like last year, of the fact that like they always want to live and die by the home run, but it seems like they're getting better, and because of these 2 like injuries, they're learning that like You know, sometimes it doesn't need to, go, home run. Sometimes you can just get a single or double into the gap and get those runs in that way. Stop chasing the balls to try and, hit them as hard, and like trying just your best to advance runners, get them along the bases. And we've been seeing a lot of that, like in some of the Miami games, we saw that where they weren't really focusing on the home runs, rather just getting those hits to drive guys in. We saw Turner and Bohm have 2 RBI nights. Castellanos had 3. Castellanos had 4 hits in which Miami game was this? June 30th. He had 4 hits that game. And I've really enjoyed seeing a lot of that. Seeing a lot of that type of ball being played. Our pitchers kind of struggled this past week. Like I know Nola in the Miami game, it wasn't like the best outing. 3 earned runs in 6.2 innings, 9 strikeouts. Though he did let up a home run, but wasn't necessarily the best outing. And then where was Rangers start? I'm trying to find Ranger. Ranger was here in Miami. Oh, that was the comeback win against Miami. We came back to win it after being down. Was it 6-3, I think, or 6-2? I forgot how much. But Ranger kind of struggled that day. Only went 4.2, 9 hits, 6 earned runs, 2 walks, let up a home run, 2.27 ERA. But if I remember correctly, was it in this Miami game or was it in a different game? There was a game where they said that, or was it the Detroit game? Let me double check. Was it the Detroit game? Yeah, it was the Detroit game. Never mind. There was an error, or there was an error that was called a hit at first, but then they went back and changed it, and that lowered his ERA. But then, of course, he had this outing against Miami, which really hurt his ERA. But still doing good, Pitching staff is still, holding up what they've got. Nola 3.43, Wheeler 2.73, Ranger 2.27, Sanchez 2.41. And as a matter of fact, I just sent this to my dad right now. Sanchez won National League Pitcher of the Month, because in the month of June, I guess is what they're calling it. 3 wins, 1.64 ERA, 0.82 WHIP, no losses. Pretty good stuff from him. He's been playing real good, especially ever since they gave him that extension. He's just been playing at another level. But getting back to the main point, of course, the injuries. Harper being injured, Schwarber being injured. Then we learned Turnbull was going on the IL as well. And so I don't know how accurate this is, but we saw a couple of people tweeting out like the timelines for a lot of Phillies. So Schwarber is expected to be back by the Dodgers series that starts on the 9th. Harper, all we're hearing about Bryce is All-Star break, which we don't know if that means before, after, during. We don't know. All they're just saying is All-Star break is expect him to be back then. JT is not expected to be back until the Pirates series, which is starts on the 19th. Taijuan Walker, we've heard, is late July. And again, I don't know how accurate this is, because then they say Spencer Turnbull is out till mid-August, so about a month. So some pretty significant injuries, and for the most part, what we're expected to do from here is just next man up. 2017 Eagles mentality, next man up. Injury happens, next guy has to come up and fill in as best as he can. And we've seen already, just off of one start, Michael Mercado does pretty well for himself in place as that 5th starter. The bullpen's ramping up. Pitching staff has still been performing pretty well. And again, we're having multiple guys fill in at different positions, multiple different guys coming in and doing their work. We've seen Sosa come in and play a bit. We've seen Clemens. We've seen Dahl, Marchand coming in, splitting time with Stubbs. Has been struggling a bit the past couple of outings. Let's see. Yeah, he's been struggling a bit. Stubbs has been, playing pretty good too. I mean, he got a home run. I think it was in the Miami series. Was it the Miami series? I I can't remember for sure, but basically we've had a lot of guys feeling. But of course, the biggest discussion is going to be, we're inching towards that trade deadline. Does any of this injury concern stuff prompt us to make a big move? And again, kind of like how I've been saying, anytime we've talked about trades, I just don't know what moves we could potentially make. Not saying that we can't make a big move, but it's like, to me personally, when I'm looking at different things, I'm like, who's really going to push this roster over the edge, and who's actually going to be available for a reasonable price, you know? Because the more we hear about Luis Robert, the more I'm kind of like, I don't know if that's exactly the trade I want to go with. You know, some injury concerns there, some batting concerns with the way he's been batting this season. And then plus the prospect call that you're expected to give up. I'm going to be honest, I've been getting more into like the prospect, you know, development and looking at different guys. And I don't know if I necessarily want to give up a Justin Crawford, a Aiden Miller, you know, in exchange for Luis Robert. Obviously big name, but it's like, I look at those prospects, I look at some of the stuff they're doing, and yeah, it's the minors, and you can't exactly expect them to replicate that when they get called up to the big league. But you look at some of the stuff they're doing, and you're just like, hold out a bit, you know. Like we barely just got Aiden Miller in last year's draft. Justin Crawford is still extremely young, you know. It's like, I'd rather hold on to those guys than give up on them so quickly, you know. And then like other pieces, like, I mean, I've brought up Kyle Tucker, you know, where it's like, are the Astros, I don't think at this point the Astros are going to fire sell the way people expect, you know, because, I mean, they haven't been terrible the past couple of like weeks, and they're even like somewhat closing in. Like, they're just a couple games out of the wild card, I believe. I don't know how many. I think maybe like 3. I know they're right behind Seattle, 3 games back from winning that division. So it's like, I don't think they're going to sell the way people expect them to. You know, they might actually buy in at this point if they see they're this close with Seattle. And other outfield names that they could potentially trade for, it kind of just plays off more as like platoon pieces, you know. Like I said, who's actually going to push this, like this roster to a certain point, you know? Because it seems like all the ones that would, too high a value to trade for them, teams aren't trading them, or, you know, they just don't seem like enticing enough that, like, to think like this is what's gonna push our roster over the hump and get us to that next level, you know. But I do expect the trade, you know, to happen, whether it be for the bullpen or an outfield piece, just because of, you know, the injuries to Schwarber and Harper, where I'm just like, this is likely going to be them looking at these injuries and being like, we can't be unprepared in a way, you know, like, we can't just look at this and think like that these guys are going to be healthy. We need to have players in preparation for if they go down, you know. And I guess that's the good part of like being able to see all these different guys fill in. And come trade deadline, I think that's where we see a point where what's the way I want to put it, that that's I've seen some people put it this way, that's the leash for certain guys, you know. Like Whit Merrifield has until that trade deadline to really prove that he can be useful to this team, and if not, then either DFA'd, somehow shipped out, you know. Even a guy like where is he at? Why is he not here? Oh, Pache, there he is. Even a guy like Pache, you know, it's like he's got to prove that, you know, he can do pretty well. I mean, just look at the past couple of games that he's had. Hasn't been doing as well, you know. 3 strikeouts in the game against Detroit, in the loss against Detroit. He had a hit, but 3 strikeouts in the Miami series. Made 1 at bat in the Miami series as a pinch hitter, struck out. Not doing the best, you know. So it's like, we've already mentioned them needing a big bat against lefties. We've already mentioned the fact that, like, they're potentially looking for a 4th outfielder, you know, maybe to platoon with different guys. So, like, come All-Star break, come, you know, trade deadline, I am very interested to see what moves this team makes. But to close out, to finish off, I would just say people need to stop panicking so much, you know. I get it, Harper and Schwarber pretty big losses, but like, look at what happened. We lost Trey for a bit. Edmundo Sosa filled in nicely. We lost JT. Both our catchers, you know, they've been up and down, but they've filled in pretty good, you know. Our pitchers haven't struggled as much as we initially thought. They still have a couple games where they look off, but it's not as significant. So obviously it is difficult to make up for the absence of those two guys, especially when you're already missing JT and Turner barely came back, you know. And it's gonna be tough to like make up for the production from those two guys at once. But I think people need to calm down a bit, you know. I don't think there's much to worry about, at least for now. We got a 9-game lead over Atlanta. We lead all MLB in wins, 56 and 29, especially because the Yankees really slumped. So it's like, I think we'll be fine for now, you know. Don't have to worry too much. And, you know, just have to play, you know, well enough for when Harper and Schwarber and JT get back. And again, who knows what trades they make. It's all going to be interesting to say. But all I have to say is, you know, I think we're going to be fine. Don't worry too much. And let's just keep watching these Phils fight like they always do.